Welcome to Real Chat,
the podcast where we, Annie and Chad, discuss real shit
loosely related to the real estate industry.
Hi, Annie.
Hi, Chad.
I don't know. Welcome to the podcast, everybody.
I'm glad to see you survived the major storm that hit your house.
It didn't hit my house. My house was just fine. There was no storm. There was a storm at my house, but it didn't hit my house. Like, I had no damage at all. Didn't even go in the basement.
You just lost your power.
I did lose power.
For?
Almost 24 hours. Yeah. Not quite, though, but almost. It went out at 8:54 p.m., and it didn't come back on until like 6.
But it definitely went your
6 p.m.
direction.
Yeah, it was about 10, 15 miles north of me. There was a tornado that went through, and that was why the power was out. So I think it was like 115,000 total.
Hit Rolla, right?
Metro area, St. Louis metro area lost power. It did demolish Rolla. I don't know that word.
Demolish? Really?
Yeah.
Is it bad?
Yeah.
Oh.
Looks like Joplin. You remember what Joplin
really
looked like when that tornado went through there?
I need to drive through there.
Yeah, the videos were pretty crazy.
My son went to school in Rolla.
Yeah, he did at Missouri S&T. But yeah, we're quite a ways away from Rolla, though.
And of all the weekends to hit Rolla, though.
9,500 miles east of Rolla.
That was their St. Pat's weekend. That's like their biggest.
It was.
That's what they're known for.
Yeah.
I spent many years there in the 80s.
Purina Farms got demolished, too.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Wow.
There were some old buildings knocked down.
They were. I haven't been to Purina Farms since my kids were in school.
It was really weird that the St. Clair, I mean, we have, 4,500 people that live in the town, and there's not much to the town. There's more than one stoplight. There's 3.
I just kept thinking of you the whole time of the podcast and saying that it wasn't going to happen.
I didn't say it wasn't going to happen. I said it was probably not going to affect 99% of the people, which is probably true still.
I don't have anything.
Oh, right.
Wind.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it stormed. I didn't know in that, but the hair on fire is my point. Like, why everybody gets their hair on fire, and like nobody died in the storm.
Oh, yes, they did.
I didn't see any deaths.
Oh, yeah. I saw one on actually on a Facebook post for my high school. Someone, and they graduated the year that my younger brother did. They were in a camper somewhere, and they still died. Picked up the camper and put it in the river.
I'm sure it did.
But I mean, people died.
A person died.
Oh.
I would have heard about it on the news stories afterwards if multiple people died. But anyways, that's my point is it doesn't affect the large majority of people. It's just, and everybody runs around with their hair on fire because they don't know who it's going to affect. It's that fear of the unknown.
Well, and it's just preparing.
I think that's
everybody should be prepared.
To a certain extent, yes. Should have a personal safety plan.
Right.
Your personal safety plan should include not being in a camper when a storm's coming.
Right. And having, put on shoes.
I don't know about all that. But why do you put on shoes?
Because if it hits you and it hits your house and you got to crawl out of the rubble, you're probably going to wish you had shoes on. We put on shoes before we go to the basement.
Yeah. Everybody, it's so funny how everybody's got
and
little quirks like that.
And then I have my pack of survival stuff. I have flashlights and stuff. I do.
I know you do. I
am prepared.
Mikey wears pajama pants to bed every night. And I always he gets hot too when he's in bed. And I'm like, why are you wearing pants if you're hot? Then just sleep naked, sleep in your underwear, do whatever. I don't care. But why you're complaining because you're hot and you have long pajama pants on? And do you know what the reason that he wears pants to bed is?
I'm guessing because in case he gets scared and has to jump up.
If there's a fire and he has to go outside, he doesn't want to have to put on pants before he goes outside.
Wow.
I'm like, and God love you. I just, sure. But it's just funny how everybody has their little quirk, right? Like my brain wouldn't even think of that. I just go outside. underwear or
You
whatever
know
I have
what?
on. But
I have an interesting topic that we
what?
could discuss because of that. Our insurance broker, Jacqueline Schmitz with Brightside, she sent an email the next day, and there were several things that she put in there that I did not know.
Oh, yeah?
Been on this earth for 58 years, been paying homeowners insurance for since, I don't know, it's 30. And I did not know that the first phone call you make when you have damage is not the insurance company. It's always my first phone call.
No.
So you are penalized for the phone call, potentially penalized for the phone call, even if you don't make a claim. So you should have your adjuster come out. You should have anybody else come out before you decide, and then even call your insurance agent to decide if you should even make the claim.
I think that depends on the insurance that you have potentially, but yeah.
Yeah, so I just didn't know that. I mean, now since I've had Jacqueline, I've always called her first, but that's
Yeah.
not the way, I would have
No, you
thought.
should call and get repairs
And I know most
started,
people-
an emergency. You fix the emergency first, and then you make the claim.
Yeah, but most people who I know, that's the first phone call is their insurance company. So anyway,
It's good.
but I didn't know that it
Good
would
tidbit.
actually count against you that you made the claim, even if the claim doesn't get paid out.
Yeah.
It's a ding. It's
Well,
kind of like hitting your
yes.
credit.
Yes.
Even though you don't make the purchase, the hit on your credit was a ding.
Yes.
So
That's
just a little
good
tidbit I learned.
information to have for sure. And
Thanks,
you,
Jacqueline, for
I
that
was gonna say
email.
you learned that because Jacqueline sent you an email afterward. Did I get that email? Probably did.
You probably deleted it.
I probably did. I don't know what to tell you.
Or maybe she just doesn't like you as much.
I was thinking about after our conversation last week, we delved into a little bit of millennials and like the changing, view on, and I thought that might be fun, like just to go through each generation and like what are their quirks when it comes to housing.
Okay. How are we doing this?
Well, however, just like what's one that jumps out to you, or we can go generation by generation. I was just thinking about it on
Let's just go generation by
the
generation.
way in, and I was like, well, you had to have a whole series on generational things when it comes to housing, like how they negotiate, how they live,
Okay. Let's start with boomers,
Okay.
which I'm not going to be able to define that, but that's the older generation now, right?
Oh no, the silent generation is still around,
Yeah.
but boomers is the majority of the elderly people in the world now, I think. Let's define it.
Okay.
So boomers were born between 1946 and 1964.
Oh, it's 46.
Yeah.
What were my parents then?
They were born in the 30s.
They were the greatest generation. Who are they?
Silent generation
Oh.
or the greatest generation, either way.
they were born in
Those two things
41.
yeah. They were the
So-
end of the silent generation.
So we are just lumping people together as a whole. So I would
And we're on baby boomers, right?
baby boomers who are now in their
So 1946 to 64.
so they're
Yeah.
older than me.
Older than you.
I'm
It's
Gen
the
X.
years 20. So that would be 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 5. So there'd be 59 to 77 right now.
So on the older side of that generation, I think the unique thing about that generation is when they bought their house, they bought it for life. And when they bought it, that was even a thought process. Like, this is the house I'm going to raise my family in. You live in it forever. Versus the generations now that they're go into it knowing they're not going to live there for more
So
than
you
5
think
years.
that boomers live. So do you think that the majority of boomers now are living in that first house that they bought still?
I do. I think a lot of them, maybe they've downsized. And I also think that,
I feel like boomers were not downsizers
so
in general.
they're still holding on to their original house.
Yeah, like going back through, I mean, most of the, what ages did I say, 66 to 76, something
Yeah.
like that. Most of those people that we know, I'm going in my head, like, I don't know that that's true, but we have a limited circle.
Right. Well, I'm just thinking of even houses when I show them,
Yeah.
and they're an older house, very well maintained, with an original owner.
Uh-huh.
And I find those houses are, I call them the house that, that time passed by, it's everything's original still. They didn't feel the need to follow the trends and update the furniture with all the latest trends. They bought stuff with their hard-earned money, and you
Yeah.
took care of it, and you took care of the house, and they weren't crazy DIYers either.
Hmm.
Or if they did, it was just done better than
My parents are boomers, and
they're on
so
the young end of boomers though, because your parents are really close to my age. It's not the old
they're
end
boomers,
of
though.
boomers.
62
Yeah.
and 64 was the year they were
So
born.
maybe I'm really doing the silent generation.
And
then.
Mikey's parents are boomers, too.
Yeah, so I'm not classifying that
Your
right.
parents would have been silent generation.
Yeah, that's
which I
really who
think
I'm talking
that-
about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
70-year-old, 80-year-old.
But I will tell you also, like my parents and Mikey's parents both, they own their houses for long periods of time. Now, neither of them currently live in their first house. But like my parents bought their first house when they got married, and it was tiny. And then they sold that relatively quickly, like 3 years they lived there. And then they sold it quickly, moved, but they didn't move far away. They just moved a couple
Yeah.
houses down to a bigger house. And then they had kids, but we lived in that house for 21 years.
Yeah.
And then moved
What's the longest you've lived in a house?
here, that house.
No, as an adult who
Oh,
either rented
I don't know,
or
but what does
own-
that have to do? It doesn't have anything to do with generations at all. And then they,
Well, it does.
this doesn't have to do with baby boomers.
No. Just was funny when you said that. 21
I've known
years.
it
That's a
5
long
years.
time. I lived in my first house for 19 years.
Yeah.
The first house that we bought.
So they lived there for 21 years, then they moved here and they lived in that house for 20 years. And they're in the house now that my parents say they're going to die in, which I believe them.
Yeah.
So, but none of those were downsizes. They were all upsizes,
Mm.
which I find interesting. Mikey's parents, the same. It changed once, but it was an upgrade, I should say.
Yeah.
House is the same size, but it was an upgraded house.
Okay,
for
so
sure.
do the next generation.
That would be your generation, Gen X.
Do you have a perception?
I don't see. For me, Gen X occurs at the generation that just disappeared. Like they're not.
Disappeared?
Yeah, no offense, but you guys aren't really known for anything.
What? We're the coolest generation to ever live.
Why?
You listen to our music still.
No, I don't.
Well, you do.
No, I don't.
You know them. You know all our songs.
Yeah, but you all know all my generation's songs too.
Well, that's only because I lived it. You didn't live ours.
Okay, you knew the boomer songs also.
Yeah,
Some
but
of
they're
those
not mine.
songs that you're thinking are your songs are probably not your songs. Like, what songs are you referring
I
to?
don't know. Let's go back to housing. What do you mean we disappeared?
I feel like you disappeared. Like you're unoriginal. You just followed suit. You did exactly what your parents did. Like I don't think
Oh
that.
no, I don't think
I don't
so
think
at
that
all.
Gen X
I think
has
we bought.
many differences.
I think we bought our first house with the intention of it being a starter house, which is different than my parents. Now, again, the crossover is so close because your parents and me and your parents are only a few years
I know.
apart. So
I know that, but you're
bought
like
a.
defending your age right now, and I don't think it.
Well,
it's-
we didn't disappear.
You all have. I think the generation did. Like I don't think that
Okay.
Gen X
Okay. Well, let's just go with that.
changed anything about the housing industry. Like what you did with your house was not different than what boomers did with their houses. Like the housing journey from start to finish is not different. I don't feel like you guys stayed in your houses for long periods of time as a general rule.
I don't know if we did or not. I did.
Your friends.
But I was probably one of my friends that didn't upgrade sooner. But that was just because I was YOLO was my theory, and I was spending my money on crazy things.
You don't have. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I was, trips and cars and vacations and stuff,
Yeah, but I wonder. So
and an in-ground
Yeah.
pool, and
yeah, but what about your friends?
they were moving up. I mean, I feel like all of my
Quickly
friends
and
bought their
multiple times, or like
probably in a decade
yeah, like first house for 10 years, and
ish.
then
Yeah, that's
next
7 to
one.
10 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I'd
don't.
probably still be in mine if not for the multi-generational living that I did.
Yeah,
With moving in with my parents and my grown kids for a while.
I do think that is new for your generation too.
Multi-generational living.
Yeah,
I agree.
started
So we
with
did
you.
that. So there you go. We've reappeared.
Oh my God, you're so offended.
That's part of my generation. We get offended easily and we like to fight.
I prefer you disappear.
It's never going to happen. We're loud.
Nobody's gonna argue with that. It's you, anyways. Yeah. So, and again, that makes sense for multi-generational living. I feel like millennials are the first ones that really disrupted the flow of things. We did that with a lot of things, though, too.
So how did you disrupt housing?
Millennials have a terrible rap because we disrupted everything. But
What did you do to disrupt the housing
I think that with
market?
the generation living that you guys did started because millennials didn't leave the house as quickly as you guys did.
Get out.
Right. Well, your parents forced you out. Like that was a
My
boomer
parents
thing,
did not
right?
force me out. No. It was just a different time to grow up and we were more independent and we were ready to get out. I mean, me and my brothers weren't forced out.
Yeah. I think
My
the
brother
opportunity
Danny
for
came
you.
and went so many times that when he got married, my dad said,
Why does that not surprise me?
my dad, no, when he bought his first house, my dad said, "That's it. Don't come back."
That's funny. Yeah. I don't know that it wasn't that you grew up more independently necessarily. I think the opportunity was there.
Oh no, when we raised, this is very bad because I know look the same age and people think we're the
Me and
same
you?
age, but I could be your mother. I'm kidding.
Oh.
But I'm just saying we raised you differently than we were raised. We were that last feral generation. I mean, we were just raised independent. You guys were raised more with the helicopter parents and we sheltered you. And so our precious babies you guys weren't ready to move out as a generation. I'm not saying you, but
Yeah.
oh, look, his jaw is moving. He's getting highly insulted. Here we go.
I'm not getting insulted at all. I was not raised by a helicopter parent. So,
Yeah.
but I disagree with you.
You left, but your brothers didn't.
No, they didn't. But that's so on a whole, and I left because of my personality. I should not have left.
Right.
And I think that's the point I guess I'm trying to make is I don't think it had anything to do with how either of us were raised. I think that millennials had a desire to leave and start their lives. And it's
Millennials? Okay, so define that. What's the years? I'm trying to wrap my head around.
82 through 96
Okay.
ish. Everybody,
Okay.
does it a little bit different, but this one 81 through 96 is millennials,
Okay.
1981 to 1996. And I don't
So
think
both of my kids are millennials.
Yes. I would, yes.
They are.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think that the desire to get out on your own was there, but the conditions were not susceptible to it happening en masse. Like, whereas when you guys were ready to move, when your generation, Gen X, was ready to move out of the house, the job market was booming, the housing industry was booming, there was all kinds of opportunity available. And when millennials came about and they were starting their lives, the conditions in the country were not the same.
Well, and even the belief system. When I was leaving the house, I don't know what the statistic is, but everyone didn't go to college.
Mm-hmm.
And then come along with the millennials, and everybody was, told
Second in high school,
go
right?
Go to college. So there's a difference there. And then I also think that you always want your kids to have better or do better than you did. We left and rented apartments, and we wanted you to stay home, save your money, and buy a house as a generation, I think.
Yeah. It's interesting,
Yeah.
which
And what's the next one?
millennials still couldn't do that necessarily, even though they stayed home and saved their money because
Right.
you just needed so much more money saved to do that. So, and I'm only saying that just because the fact is millennials bought their first house way later than any other generation ever had. And still to this day, Gen Z, which is the next generation after millennials, buying their first house way earlier than millennials did. Um, but I think, again, because
Yeah,
I don't
because
know
that's not going to
why.
make sense.
Yeah,
It's harder now than it was for you guys because
true.
you guys could buy a house when interest rates were, were better. And
Yeah.
so who knows?
For a minute there were no houses available. But I do think it's a better market for buyers now than it was during that time.
I don't know about that first time home buyer. That's tough.
Yeah, well, if you do, so if you had a millennial that was born in 1981, they would be buying, and follow the trend. They would have been trying to buy their first house in what? 1981, 1991, 2001, 2002, 3, somewhere in there, 21, 22 years old. That was pretty average for your generation, first time home buyer.
I'm not a millennial.
No, I'm saying Gen X, but
Oh,
millennials. And so if the
yeah.
average
I
first
don't
time
know.
home
I would, if
buyer
I was
was,
guessing, I would say 25.
okay, so 25, even if you take that to that. So the average first time home buyer, in order to follow in your generation's footsteps, and millennials followed in Gen X generation footsteps, and they were 25 when they bought their first home, they would have been buying their first home in 2006.
Well, ish. That's the youngest or
The
the
first
oldest, right?
millennial, the oldest
and then we know what
millennials.
happened to the market shortly
So
after.
from 2006 to 2016,
Right.
today's a better market, which Gen
Right.
Z is that 25-year-old mark. Today's a better market than
Yeah.
that market was for
Agree.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, interest rates were astronomical and you couldn't, not interest rates were astronomical, but the financial crisis, just there was
Right.
no jobs and you had to have income all of a sudden to get a mortgage.
Right.
You couldn't just sign on the line.
Right.
And so,
The good old days.
yeah, the good old days. But it is millennials, that's first time home buyer age. And that pushed that age all the way from, which I think you're right on the last one that I saw, pushed that age all the way from like 25 to 37.
Right.
Most millennials didn't buy their first house until they were in their mid 30s.
And even some of that is just
And
cultural.
for the record, I'm 36 in my mid 30s. Most of my friends are just now buying their
Right.
first house. And I know it's crazy. I've owned 3, but
Yeah.
so there's
But I
always
think
the
they're
outliers.
right. I
but
think that I think as a generation the world is smaller, so you're doing more and seeing more before you settle down to do that.
the world is smaller or the world is bigger?
No, the world is smaller. Like you have more access. Like I would have never thought to move to New York or, like to do things that now you see all that and people encourage it. And I look back now and think how different I would have done my life.
I think everybody does that.
But I mean, that never even occurred to my generation to, you got out of high school, if you went to college or you got married and you started your family, that was just still what was expected.
Yeah.
I'm not calling you the selfish generation, but I mean, I raised that generation, but yeah, we wanted you to go out and live your best life before you settled down and did all those things. So
Yeah.
that pushed you down the line too.
Potentially, yeah, for sure. Not me, but I wasn't interested
You
in
got
that
kicked
shit.
out.
I didn't get kicked out. I moved out, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't get kicked out. My parents were so mad at me when I left the house, but
Yeah.
because I was 19 and it was a
Well,
whole
mine was
story,
mine
but-
was even that way. You talked about like we were kicked out. We weren't. My parents thought I was crazy. Why would you want to move out and pay rent?
yeah,
I'm like, because I.
because I want to be independent,
Mhm.
right? I just wonder if millennials.
My kids were still in the basement
I
saying,
did.
"Ma, the meatloaf."
If the meatloaf, yeah, your kids would still be in the basement.
No, they
today.
wouldn't. I would still like them to be in the basement, and they're not there.
Mm.
No, I wouldn't. In case they're listening,
Yeah, because both of
I'm
your
taking
kids,
that offer
I
off
like-
the table.
I've heard your daughter say so many times that she would live with you.
Oh, I'm sure.
If you said the word, her husband, and her 2 children would be in your basement
Yeah.
in no time flat.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it's her husband that really would do it faster than she would.
No, I think she would too.
Would she?
Then she wouldn't have to work.
Funny. But I do think that multi-generational housing, like to your point, you had that Gen X, you had millennial kids, the millennial kids, for whatever reason, whether it was a capability thing or a parenting thing, didn't leave the house. So you had adult children living with you as that, and then you got used to cohabitating on that level.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it was an easy transition when your parents, the silent generation, had to sell their house because that was their retirement.
Right.
They moved in with you, and it was an easy transition.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've got the other set of parents moving in with you.
I know. I'm a total fan of multi-generational living, as long as nobody's raising children. I don't know that would be a fan of that. Like, I want to be a grandma, not a co-parent. And I think if you're living under the same roof, it would be hard to
be.
You'd have to follow the rules. I don't want to follow the parents' rules. I want to do what the grandma does.
To babysit.
But yeah, multi-generational living to me makes tons of sense.
There's a lot of people doing it now. I don't think they're doing it because they want to do it. I think they're doing it because they have to do it. But
ours is more of a want, but
yeah, yours for sure. But for sure, yours is a want. My parents.
But by the time you're in your 80s, taking care of a house and doing all those things, and it's a lot.
It is a lot. I see a lot of people, it's something that's just new to me in this area anyways. I know they had like the 55 and older communities in Florida and like all that. But in our area, them suckers are popping up left and right.
Right. Well, yeah.
I think we've sold 4 of them in
but
the last couple of years.
But it's expensive. And so everyone, and again, we will be the first generation that have the 401ks and have the investments and have the ability to do that. The greatest generation or the silent generation, who are the ones that would be my parents. And, they didn't have that. And so then their retirement, it's later than retirement. My parents were retired for 20 years before they moved in with me, but it's those last decades that are harder, I think, at least my experience.
Well, and I also think too that, generationally speaking, the newer generations are living longer, and that's presenting a problem too. Like,
yeah, but hasn't that topped out? Aren't they saying now like that's going to be, we're going to be the first generation, Gen X, that won't necessarily outlive their parents? Because we were raised on red dye number 3, processed food. We did all the things.
I don't know, they say that, but then it's funny because Gen Xers are typically proud of the fact that they were feral. You just said
we were.
But then also like
But we were the first ones who were
mad at millennials because they're all health conscious and don't want to eat processed meat when they're pregnant.
I'm not judging. We probably helped you learn that, but yes. But we were mass vaccinated. We were... that's when
the majority of people are
TV dinners, microwave ovens. Before that, our parents ate whole foods.
It's definitely trending to be on the whole side of things again. But I think
I agree.
Mass, it still happens. But I don't know. I haven't seen that. But then medical technology gets so much further advanced every week and every day too that who knows. But from a housing standpoint, I do think that that's going to be a problem at some point because people are living a lot longer. Like my grandmother is 86 and she's
a problem for not having enough.
Yeah. And she's still living, but then she's buying these 55 and up communities also that you don't have any maintenance and all of that stuff. So those are popping up.
Yeah.
So maybe millennials will get it good at the end of their life. I can only
Are you
see
saying that
things
you're
through
not having
mine.
it good now?
We did not have it good at the beginning. No. I think that we just established why.
I think some of that was...
I'm not saying I did personally. I'm saying as a general rule, millennials had the short end of the stick when starting their independent lives. Housing was very hard to obtain because we were just after the housing financial crisis. So you had a hard time finding a house. You had a hard time finding a job because those weren't readily available. And then on top of that, our idiot parents all decided we should go to college, every single one of us. So not only did we have no job and no house, we had more debt than anybody else has ever had in their entire life. Like, we really did get, and not me, personally, I made decisions that didn't like accidentally. It wasn't even on purpose. I
Right.
was a rebel.
That's a shocker.
I did the opposite of everything my parents told me to do. So that's how I ended up not having all of that. But majority of people my age did, and it is hard, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we'll on the back end, because everybody's living longer and they're building these 55 and up communities, maybe at the end of our retirement lives, we'll have it a little bit easier. And I do think that's true, because the wealth is up there still right now, where you guys are, part of the reason that it made Gen X and even boomers, from the silent generation up to boomers, the reason they were able to obtain the American dream and do that is because their parents passed their wealth a lot earlier on to them.
I'm still
because they didn't
waiting.
live as long.
Yeah.
Just as a general rule, again. You and I have
I'm waiting for my
our
great
own
aunt from
individual
somewhere that I never
story.
met. That
Right, exactly. But it does,
Yeah.
so, and they are holding it. So we are going to get that wealth later in life as millennials, you know what I mean? Because you
Right.
guys do have the houses
It is
still, and you do
true.
have the 401ks, and you do, like, those
Right.
are all still held by you, whereas a lot of that would have been passed
No,
already.
that's true. That's fair.
So I'm looking forward to the end of my life. It's going to be bougie and leisurely.
Now, if you don't shape up, it's going to be sooner than you think.
Spoken like a true Gen Xer.
Brought you into this world, and I can
Full
take
of
you out.
bullshit. Saying shit they had no intention of carrying through on. Anyways.
Are we out of time?
We are out of time. It is interesting when you think about that generational things and how they affect.
All right. Well, I guess
there's a whole generation of Gen Alpha. We didn't even get to that. So
that's true.
we'll pick that up. Another episode of podcast.
If you come back, because you're going to Vegas this weekend.
I am going to Vegas.
Is there like a monetary amount if you win that you're not coming back?
No.
Okay.
I don't want to live in Vegas.
Okay.
I've been to Vegas before. And
Well, I didn't mean not coming back
No
from
offense,
from
but-
Vegas. I meant just not coming back to work.
Oh, no, I'd be bored.
Okay.
I could have millions of dollars and I'd still be working. Just
So
because
when we go to the casino,
I'd probably do it a little differently.
we're
but
financial partners when we gamble together at the casino. So am I cut in if we get a big winning?
Are you going to give me your half of the injection?
Sure.
Okay, then yes.
Send me an invoice. A Venmo request, I guess.
I don't think that's going to work out well for you. I'm just saying.
Yeah, never mind. I don't even trust you that much. Oh, I lost yours.
Exactly. Oh, all right. We're out of time. Yes, we're out of time.
All right. Well, have fun in Vegas.
All right. You have fun keeping the ship down here. And
I'm going to see Robbie and Bailey get married.
I'll be there also on Sunday. So wedding on Sunday. Wedding on Saturday. We fly out on Sunday, early evening. So I'll be at the wedding. But if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to the podcast. In case you don't know how to subscribe to the podcast, it's the little button right underneath of the video or the audio on there. So
Can I point to it?
down, subscribe, down, go down and subscribe. And we'll see you on a future episode.